Welcome back to Bumblebee. Here are the top 10 most powerful armies in ancient history. Kicking off our list at number 10, the Varangian Guard of Byzantium. This first ancient army was one of the more recent, so, figured I'd start with this. They were formed at the end of the ancient world, right at the beginning of the medieval period. Yeah, I figured that was a fair starting point, then we'll reel it back a few hundred years or so. The Varangian Guard was made of Norsemen, the mightiest of the mighty, might I add. They all had banded together to guard the Byzantine Empire, the East Romans. They served from the 10th to the 14th century, and they were originally assembled to serve and protect Emperor Basil II. They were made up mostly of Norsemen, but also Anglo-Saxons from England as well. Just the toughest dudes from all around, really. Just people you don't want to fight, essentially. What made this army so frightening, on top of them being comprised of, the strongest Norsemen, were the weapons that they held. Sometimes single, but most of the time they were double-bladed battle axes. Double-bladed battle axes. Uh-oh. In 1204, when the Fourth Crusade attacked Constantinople, the Varangians had to defend the city walls for 2 days straight, until Venetian ships arrived and set the city on fire with incendiaries that ought to distract and, disturb. The guard was subsequently wiped out, and the last time history referenced the Varangian Guard was in 1395, when some were working in the administrative department rather than the military. Number 9. The White Company. They should have been called the Fright Company. Oh boy! In the 14th century Italy, there were free companies, which were basically bands of soldiers from all over. They were English, Hungarian, German, Breton, you name it. The first unit came together in the 1360s, but when Sir John Hawkwood, an English veteran who served in the 100 Years' War, a knight, came along to lead the White Company, well, that's when things got strategic. More or less. This is when they went from a free company to one of the most elite mercenary armies in history. All it takes is some good leadership, and maybe a couple knights. They were known for their skills with a longbow, and they were also known to attack during foul weather at night. So no, you will not see them coming at all. They were right between two warring cities. So between 1363 and 1388, they would fight with and against the Pope, depending on, who's paying for their services and what we're paying exactly. Even when nothing was going on conflict-wise in the world, they would just raid towns for fun. Again, during awful weather or at night, so you wouldn't see them coming. This is a scary one. Anything with archers at night, that's scary for me. Number 8, the Immortals of Persia. Well, there's a name right there, the Immortals of Persia. Let's talk about them. The Immortals were in power from 550 BCE to 330. The Immortals were guards of Persian kings throughout this time. They were profound bodyguards and elite battle reserves. Again, strongest people you can imagine. This unit was mighty powerful, and they were known as the 10,000, because yes, power comes in numbers. They played a significant part in the invasion of Greece, and the team was always 10,000 strong. No less, no more. If one of these immortals were to step out or be forced out, rather by sickness or death, another was chosen right away. So this army stayed strong over all those years. Always 10,000. That's a hard number to keep up. Number 7, Egyptians. We've looked at ancient Egyptian culture up close here on Bumblebee, but we haven't touched on their ancient armies yet. Of course they had to fight. You can't have all this beautiful land and boom as one of the first major civilizations in history without having a few people try and sneak in and steal some goods. The Hyksos people, who were located in northern Egypt, they were actually the first to become organized, and they took over lower Egypt at one point with chariots and weapons. It was a whole spectacle. The Egyptians learned from this, made their own army, and this time they had archers, infantry, charioteers, the whole package, and then, well, they succeeded. And they lasted for quite a while. We're still talking about them. Number 6, the Spartans. Yeah, we had to mention the ancient army of Greece, the Spartans. This is Sparta. What's going on? Every boy in Greece, when they turned 6 or 7, they learned military training and education all at the same time. It's called the agage. Every male Spartan would leave their family and then go train with other boys to grow into this full-time ancient army, this ancient warrior, right? It's like Hogwarts, but not nearly as fun. Less magic, more push-ups. One of the first lessons these boys learned was a dance called the Pyriche. It was to teach these young warriors how to be light on their feet whilst carrying heavy equipment. I wish I learned this carrying groceries growing up, would have helped a lot. But then at age 12, then there was the Marakion, or the youth. That's where their physical training would really pick up at this point. Once they turned 18, well then they were full-on soldiers. But all these strict rules were then in place, so they couldn't even talk to anybody else in the marketplace until they were 30 years old. So again, they were training and busy until they were 30. They couldn't do anything. There's barely any freedom. Plutarch was the first to say it, but really the only time a Spartan warrior was able to rest, more or less, was during war. As ironic as that sounds. Number 5, the Celtic Warriors. The warriors of Celtic Europe. A lot of facial hair for number 5. A lot of tall lads with long hair and thick beards. Nice. They were fans of being nude, often, when they were fighting. And to be fair, when you're covered in hair and tattoos and all this stuff, when you're literally a Viking, yeah, show it off. Battle naked. I don't care. I can't even paintball, let alone fight in a war, so I'm not one to talk. I'm not wearing jeans going in here. I would act like Jason Momoa the entire time if I looked like this. Celtic Warriors included women. Women would be ranked the same, if not higher. That was the best part. The Romans were thrown off by Celtics. Unspeakable amounts of hornblowers and trumpeters. These jacked naked warriors would shout battle cries the entire time they were rolling in. So yeah, it was alarming. It was pretty jarring. These mighty women would just punch your head off. It was amazing. Number 4, the Sacred Band of Thebes. This next ancient elite military unit comes from ancient Greece. The Sacred Band of Thebes was of course a Theban army made up of 150 male couples. In total, there were also 300 men with this unit. The general, Pelopidas, led this elite army, and they remained at the top from 278 to 228 BCE. The army fell as a unit later on during the Battle of Chaeronea. They all refused to surrender and continued to fight until the very last of them fell fighting off Alexander's attack. They were buried on the battlefield, and later on, the Lion of Chaeronea was erected over their grave. Later on in the 19th century, when excavations were done to the site, 254 skeletons were uncovered, all laying in 7 rows. Yeah, I feel like we don't hear about this 300 often enough, so had to throw them in this list, of course. Number 3, Vikings. Like I said, been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Valhalla lately, and let me tell you, they're crazy. They are absolutely wild. The first official Viking raid took place in 793 AD. These Viking raiders left such a huge mark on history that we refer to this time period as an age, like we do the Middle Ages. We refer to this as the Viking Age. It officially lasted from 793 to 1066, the year of the last big Viking battle. They departed from agrarian pagan Scandinavia. Settlers and traders rolled up to England. They arrived in Lindisfarne, and then from then on just, invaded hundreds and hundreds of settlements. Not the best way to go about things. English kings ruling over coastal seas needed to start making defense plans from these seagoing pagans everybody's talking about. Everyone had their own army, and they're like, it's just people with beards. It's always guys with beards, naked, rolling up, causing trouble. Why are they always naked? Number 2, the Han Dynasty. Going to ancient China for this one. The Qin dynasty sprung into chaos in the late 3rd century BC after it collapsed. It was a mess until rebel leader Liu Bang came from Han and reunited the empire. Now it was common for men to enroll into 2 years of military service. You had to. All the while, there's a standing army guarding the northern border, so it was tight. As far as military alignments go, it was pretty secure. The weapons used during the Han Dynasty was honestly fascinating. Crossbows, and more often than not, a double-edged sword. So yeah, it looked pretty badass. So with all this power, the Han Dynasty grew over the following 4 centuries before it collapsed once again. And finally, number 1, Combat of the 30. The Combat of the 30 took place during the Breton War of Succession. This was back in 1351. With many of these armies, they're always made with the toughest soldiers from all around, the mightiest warriors of all over. That's it. So at some point, these battles must have been a spectacle to watch on one hand, right? Like as I'm explaining this, you're like, oh man, I really want to see what it's like to see a naked Viking fight another dude. Yeah, kind of. It's curious. It's interesting. That's why we're here. The Combat of the 30 was arranged beforehand. Both sides had 30 champions, as you would have guessed, and they were all made of the best knights in all of their land. The best of the best. You're now representing us. 30 v 30. Then they all decided to meet at the battlefield at Brittany, and then they got it done in an organized fashion, which is pretty odd considering how things have gone historically prior. One side represents England, the other France. This event, and I say event because it pulled in a crowd. Drinks were served throughout the audience. This fight lasted a long time, and in case you're wondering if anyone stood around and watched these epic battles go down, yeah, most likely. They ended up taking breaks like a sporting event. These battles would last so long, they needed to take breaks and intermissions and like talk to fans and be like, all right, fight's going good, this dude lost an arm, he lost a foot, but we're doing our best. Like a sporting interview, know what I mean? 110%, just giving her. That was the reality of it. By the end of the whole thing, the English surrendered after losing 9 knights, so still bad. It's still all bad, although it's interesting that people were, gathering to watch. Thank you so much for joining us on Bumblebee today. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters, and we'll see you next time for some more powerful ancient armies in history. Let's do it. Welcome back to Bumblebee. Here are the top 10 most powerful armies. I'm gonna go throw up. Try that again. Is there a dinosaur below us? I feel like things moving around. It's gonna fall through the floor. Be like, hey, click thumbs up. Now I'm in the Blue's Clues studio. The general, Pelopidas.